If you guys enjoy what I do, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe. It really helps the channel and it's free and easy to do. Welcome to my channel where we cover the lore of Final Fantasy XIV. We cover the stories both big and small, the epic and the cute, the silly and the tragic. I hope you all enjoy the ride, and welcome to the Chronicler of Lore. After Azim and Themis had detected the oddness from Pandaemonium, they had decided that it would be for the best if he hid his station as Elidibus while he investigated. There's more to this story, but before Themis goes into the details, he wants to talk about you a bit. Even though neither he nor Azim had met you before, she had a lot of praise for you, which is why Themis had decided to work with you in the first place. Azim found the fact that you and she were similar as something that was funny, but she somehow knew that you'd make for a strong ally. The fact that Themis had heard about Vanna traveling with you made him trust you even more, despite how weird you and your ether actually are. He had just wanted to tell you that before he got sidetracked with all the craziness that's going on. Since Erathonius dives right into questioning his father in a very disrespectful way, the time for friendly banter is brought to a very swift end. After making it known that he had hoped to never talk to his dad again, he wants to know who Hephaestus is and why he looks like a younger La Habrea. And he wants to know why La Habrea only just decided to show up, because he definitely had to know what was going on in Pandaemonium long before now. La Habrea had known what was happening, but he also knew that Themis and Azim had decided to investigate, so he didn't see any reason to join in, at least not at first. That changed when a keyword sent a message saying that everything was running like normal. After that, he figured that whatever Hephaestus had done was beyond Themis' control, so he came to check himself. The fact that he knew someone was pretending to be a member of the convocation and hadn't done anything about it was something that Themis had never thought he'd see, so he knows the explanation for all of this has to be pretty interesting. Technically, no one is pretending to be La Habrea. Hephaestus is using La Habrea's real name because he is in fact a part of La Habrea himself. He knows all of the same things, has all of the same skills, but he's fueled by all of the negative emotions that the ancients pretend like they don't have. Greed, envy, lust, and such. He was a product of an experiment gone wrong from when La Habrea was younger, and he had thought he'd sealed the man away. Apparently he hadn't done a good job of that. Erathonius wants to know why Hephaestus had blamed La Habrea for Athena's death. What he really wants to know was, did La Habrea kill his mother? La Habrea says that the man is insane, and he needs to be put down before he brings disaster to the star, but he doesn't confirm or deny the accusation. What he does do is decide that since he's in charge of Pandaemonium, as of this moment, the place needs to be abandoned and destroyed immediately. The fact that he's willing to leave the warders who are still trapped in the place to die doesn't surprise Themis, since the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, so sacrificing the researchers of Pandaemonium to prevent a star-wide catastrophe makes sense. But while it's the right decision, it isn't necessarily the best decision. Themis and Azim had even considered it themselves. That was why Themis had decided to head into the place to begin with, so he could see if total annihilation was in fact the best way to go. None of that matters. Once La Habrea got involved as the head keyword, his first job is to make sure nothing in Pandaemonium affects the outside world, regardless of the cost. How any of you feel about it is pretty irrelevant. Obviously, Erathonius is upset about this, especially since you all, emphasis on the you part, have been dealing with and overcoming each of Pandaemonium's creatures. La Habrea is a bit curious about you and your strange ether, and since you have been doing most of the heavy lifting, Themis wants to hear what you think should be done. Technically, what you think wouldn't matter all that much, but the Warrior of Light points out that since Themis holds the seat of the emissary Elidibus, he can determine if your approach is a good way of keeping Pandaemonium's problems from spilling over to the rest of the star. If he says that it is, then even La Habrea will have to listen. Of course, he could vote in La Habrea's favor, then there would be no more argument and Pandaemonium would be destroyed with whoever is still trapped inside. But he decides to keep on as you had been instead of taking La Habrea's scorched earth approach, at least until after La Habrea sees you all in action. Being a stickler for the rules even when he doesn't agree with them, La Habrea agrees to follow Themis' judgment, but if you don't seem like you're capable of containing the threat, then he will destroy Pandaemonium. Erythonius is confident that you'll succeed, but confidence that La Habrea doesn't remember him having before. Getting even that small compliment from La Habrea annoys the man, and he decides that he's had enough of talking to his father and walks off. Themis gets that the man doesn't like his dad, but this mission is already going to be difficult without adding family drama to it, so Themis sends you to talk to the man to help him get his mind right. While he is upset, Erythonius makes it a point to let you know that he appreciates you helping keep La Habrea from destroying Pandaemonium. He just couldn't let that happen after seeing how the Key Wards had given up their chance to escape when this all had started so they could keep the creatures contained. If they fought that hard, he knows that none of them would want to see the place destroyed, and they definitely don't deserve to be abandoned. Aside from that, he still wants to find out what Hephaestus knows about his mother, because he doesn't think the man was lying about La Habrea killing her. The only thing they had told him was that she died in an accident, and no one would answer any of his questions about it. Knowing his father, the man may not have killed her, but he would have left her to die to save the star, and Erythonius really wants to know what happened. Having someone to vent his frustrations to works wonders for calming the man down, and now he's ready to get to work proving to La Habrea that you all can save Pandaemonium. And the best way to start is by taking Abyssos back, even though he doesn't want to. Since La Habrea will know more about what you'll face deeper inside of the facility, Erythonius decides that you should ask him, since he seems eager to see you in action anyway. La Habrea had asked Themis about you while you were talking to his son, and hearing that you're connected to Azem in some way has La Habrea even more interested in you, especially since you're unique, even among the literal thousands of concepts he's seen. Finding unique things in their travels seems to be a common trait among the holders of Azem's seat, since they tend to get more involved with people and things that more logical people would ignore. Kind of like what you're doing with Pandaemonium. And Azem's tendency to ignore logic and do what she feels usually corrupts everyone she deals with. Emmett Selk said the same thing, but Themis promises that he won't let Azem's way of doing things interfere with his duty. La Habrea points out that he kinda just did by not letting him just destroy Pandaemonium outright, but what's done is done, and La Habrea has no problem telling you about Abyssos, even though he doesn't have control of it anymore. For starters, he doesn't sense any more monsters wandering around the area, but Hephaestus has left something worse, Hegemony, the Key Ward of Abyssos, and she's been corrupted. She was very gifted in magic and extremely intelligent, and she hasn't lost any of that after her forced transformation. Since some of the normal her still remains, there may be a way to fix her, and Erythonius wants to seal her away until you all can figure out how. That means you'll have to fight her. The Warrior of Light and her summoned allies get to see firsthand just how skilled at magic the corrupted Key Ward is. And while she's formidable, she still gets wrecked, and Themis and Erythonius seal her away. Erythonius is pretty smug, since the victory means that La Habrea has to admit that the method they're using is good enough to save the place. La Habrea has no problem saying that he was wrong, and seeing how powerful the Warrior of Light is despite her thin ether is making it all the more interesting, so he agrees that your mission can continue, but he doesn't think Erythonius should be a part of it. He's not strong enough to seal the creatures alone, and just hoping it works is not a good strategy, especially since failure means death for more than just himself. But that's not the main reason La Habrea doesn't think he should stay a part of the team. It's his motives. His primary focus should be on stopping Hephaestus, but the fact that he's worrying about resurrecting his mother makes him dangerous to the entire mission. His mother is dead, probably reincarnated in a new vessel by now, and the life cycle needs to continue as it's supposed to. Even if Hephaestus could bring Athena's body back, it wouldn't be her. Erythonius still thinks it's possible that Hephaestus may have figured out a way to really revive her, proving La Habrea right. If he's that focused on his personal mission over the true one, what would he do if the price of resurrecting his mother was one of his own teammates, or the lives of all of the captives that he claims that he wants to save? From the way he's acting, La Habrea thinks all of that was an act, and he hasn't matured one bit from the ignorant child that he's always been. That last insult is more than Erythonius can take, and he snaps on La Habrea, calling him a selfish murderer. In the moment where he loses control, Hephaestus calls out to him, and despite hearing another voice telling him not to listen, Erythonius teleports off to join the man. Whatever he had used to take over Erythonius' mind worked quicker than La Habrea had expected. He had felt his son's hatred for him growing from the minute he had showed up, and he knew that it was only a matter of time before he snapped, and that let the spell take him. The spell was so good that Erythonius didn't even notice it, which means the other keywords likely didn't either. In the midst of the attack, You all felt another presence, one that was trying to warn Erythonius, but the warning came too late. La Habrea taunting the boy hadn't really helped the situation either. Hephaestus had likely known that would happen too, since he is La Habrea, and now there's no telling what will happen to his son. Themis doesn't think it's too late to save the man. You just need to take Abyssos before Erythonius fully loses himself. But it won't be easy to get through the place. Hephaestus has laid traps all over that will kill you if you trigger them. But with your thin ether, the warrior of light can pass them without setting them off. At least that's what happened before. If he's adjusted his traps, this will be a very short rescue attempt. While you need to be fast, Themis thinks it'll help if La Habrea explain why Hephaestus wants Erythonius. He also wants to know why La Habrea seems to have a real problem with his son's devotion to his mother. The man acts like grieving for the woman is just as bad as trying to raise her from the dead. Since Athena seems to be the driving force behind Hephaestus and Erythonius, the situation does need to be talked about. La Habrea admits that it does need to be discussed, but only after you deal with the last keyword. Her name is Aegisthus, and she's worked at Pandaemonium since it was founded, and her magical skills are beyond all of the other keywords. Hephaestus' experiments wouldn't work without her, so he's locked her away in a spot that you can't just walk to or teleport to under normal circumstances. But with your ether being like it is, La Habrea can send you straight to her. Themis will help you with the fight as best he can, and from what La Habrea can sense, whatever's been done to Aegisthus left very little of her, so there's no reason to try to contain her. All you can do now is put her out of her misery. The keyword has been turned into a very disgusting tree beast, but the change has done nothing to lessen her power, which makes for a difficult fight. But again, the warrior of light comes out on top. The moment she dies, a pathway that allows Themis and La Habrea to teleport in appears, which is strange since it seems like someone made it specifically for them. It was so neatly made and protected that it had to be done by a keyword of great skill, and Aegisthus, or what's left of her, appears to let you know that it was her that did it. She doesn't have much power left, but she is happy to see La Habrea again. Your fight helped her free herself from Hephaestus' spell, but it bombards you with so many emotions that it's hard to even remember what you really want to do. So if you don't remember that you want to be free, you could end up thinking that you want to serve Hephaestus. Honestly, this sounds like the origins of tempering. Aegisthus was strong enough that at least a small part of her mind stayed her, and she was able to reach out and talk in bursts to the outside world. She was the one who had sent the report saying that all was well to hopefully draw La Habrea. She doesn't have much time left before she fades away entirely, and she has one thing that she needs to let you know to keep the past from repeating itself. She apologizes to La Habrea, but she has to let you and Themis know why Hephaestus wants Erythonius. Whether he was okay with it or not, she didn't wait for La Habrea to say so before she made an image showing herself and a young La Habrea. He had just killed Athena and sealed a part of his memories and emotions away inside of Hephaestus, and after that Aegisthus had wanted to know whether or not he was going to tell Erythonius the truth. He had decided to leave his memories buried with his other half, because he was sure that Erythonius would let the world burn if it meant saving his mother, and hearing the truth would break him. La Habrea would rather let his son hate him than to let him know that the mother he had loved so much just saw him as a tool to be used and discarded. Besides, even if he told the boy the truth, he was pretty sure that in the end he would find some way to blame La Habrea, or maybe himself. So if dealing with his son hating him was the price of keeping Erythonius mentally able to serve the star, La Habrea was okay with it. It turns out that La Habrea was actually keeping the secret to help his son, but Aegisthus wasn't surprised by that. La Habrea is a problem solver for everyone else but himself. There's more to the story, but La Habrea will have to tell you himself because her time is up. He thanks her for what she did, since it would have been hard for him to even start telling the story, but after everything he sacrificed for the star's prosperity, she was more than willing to help. It was a good last act before she fades away, something that Hephaestus definitely sensed, so you all leave before he attacks you. La Habrea adds more details to Athena's story once you're all safely back outside. She was consumed by her research and willing to kill her own son if it sped up the experiments. That's why she had given him a position in Pandaemonium in the first place. It will make him easier to use as a test subject. Themis fully understands why La Habrea would keep that a secret. Erythonius probably couldn't handle that news. Hephaestus has picked up where Athena left off and succeeded in creating the Hemithoi. La Habrea doesn't know what his plans are, but it has something to do with bringing Athena back. Themis wants to know the rest of the story, but that'll have to wait until after you free Erythonius. Reaching him will be easier since without Aegis, Hephaestus can no longer manipulate Pandaemonium, and the only place that he could be is in Tartarus, where Athena had built her laboratory. That doesn't mean the man is going to just let you all walk in. Themis will focus on keeping him from blowing you up on your way there, which means La Habrea will have to summon your phantom allies, but he wants to be the one to finish off Hephaestus when you're done. He doesn't plan on sealing the man away again, and after the modifications he's done to his body, sealing him might not work anyway, which means it's time for you to face Hephaestus. Erythonius is chained up and unconscious in the lab, and Hephaestus is more than ready for you. The man's clearly been lifting weights because his new form is jacked, and kinda scary looking. It's not all show either. He's strong, but he still gets whooped by the Warrior of Light, and La Habrea comes in to finish him off. Hephaestus refuses to admit defeat, and in a true coward move, he puts Erythonius between himself and you like a human shield. While he talks like he wants to bring Erythonius' dreams to life, the fact that he's hiding behind him proves that he doesn't care any more for the man than Athena had, and he's proved that even more by not telling Erythonius the truth about his mother. He claims to care for the man like a father, but his actions say the opposite, and fulfilling a child's wish when it'll hurt them in the end is probably the worst thing a parent could do. La Habrea admits that after he killed Athena, he promised to guide the star down a good path, which made him neglect his son, so he has to admit that he's been a bad father, but he won't let anyone manipulate and use his kid, especially not a damaged clone of himself. Erythonius heard everything that was said about his mother, and he heard what his father had said, which helped him regain his own mind enough to break free, and he turns on Hephaestus and successfully uses the interment spell to trap the man. La Habrea joins in, adding his own power to the spell, and they seal Hephaestus away inside of a crystal. Despite still being light on the praise, La Habrea admits that his son did well, especially since he was able to trap Hephaestus while he was only half recovered from the man's spell. His skill with the interment spell is far beyond what La Habrea had expected. It only takes a moment for all signs of Hephaestus' spell to vanish from Erythonius' mind, and the fact that the spells attacking Pandaemonium's barriers has faded away causes Themis to come running in to see if it's all finally over. It is, and Hephaestus has been locked away just how La Habrea had done before. Granted, the last time he hadn't actually had a body. That revelation makes Themis remind La Habrea that he was supposed to tell you all the rest of the story. Since Erythonius wants to hear it too, La Habrea decides that it's time to let it all out. Athena had been a genius that was so focused on her research that sometimes she would forget to eat or sleep on her search for knowledge about the secrets of life. The ancients create life, but they can't make souls. They can also enhance and change their physical bodies, but they still have limits. Athena was looking for a way to break those limits, something that's not meant to be done. Most people wouldn't even have the brain power to try and get it done. Since La Habrea was the leader of the words of La Habrea, he talked to Athena about transcending their limits a lot. When a scientist finds a challenge, they always try to figure out how to overcome it. While they were talking, La Habrea started to think that the way they could ascend would be to merge with one of their creations. That way they could make something that countered their own weaknesses, fuse with it, and become something greater. It was just a theory, but Athena wanted him to work on it more and tell her about it. They started to talk more, and one thing led to another, which led to Erythonius. I'm not going to explain how they made him. I'm pretty sure you can find something about it on the internet. La Habrea had thought that Athena really cared about him, so he didn't notice her hidden motives, which is why once Pandaemonium was built and she wanted to lead the researchers, he didn't see anything wrong with it. That gave her the ability to do whatever experiment she wanted. When he found out what she was doing, he rushed to Athena's hidden lab, not really knowing what he'd find, and for this part he figures it'll be better to show you, so he makes a scene similar to what Aegis had shown you before. Athena has Erythonius bound, similar to how Hephaestus had him, and La Habrea warns her that if she doesn't let him go, he'll have to kill her. She's willing to die for her research, but she wants La Habrea to know what she's doing. Once he understands what she's doing, she doesn't think that he'll want to stop her. Her explaining it wouldn't be enough, so she wants to bond souls with him, that way he'll be able to get his answers. Because he's actually curious, the two of them link. The only thing he saw in her was a desire to truly become a god that transcends mortality and their plane of existence, and she didn't care about anything else, not La Habrea, their son, or the star itself. Because of that, La Habrea separates himself from her, but she knows that he's just as curious to see if her experiments with Erythonius would bear fruit as she is, and now that they've shared a soul, there's no way for him to get rid of that curiosity. Eventually, he'll walk the same path that she did, and he'll see her experiments to completion. To make sure that he doesn't, La Habrea tears that part of his mind and emotions away and leaves behind only his duty as La Habrea. The other part he locked in a crystal that became Hephaestus. Themis, in a very polite way, says that La Habrea is insane, since what he did to suppress his memories could have rewritten who he was. The rest of the convocation had noticed the change, and some of them had some idea about what he'd done. He could have destroyed the crystal, but since he'd never done anything like that to himself before, he didn't want to throw away that piece of his soul just in case he needed to put it back. He figures Athena had known what he would do and made a vessel to use the pieces of his soul to carry on the mission after her death. After hearing the story, Erythonius actually believes his father had really been looking out for him and decides to tell his dad thank you before you all head back outside. Themis is eager to go and tell the story to Azem, but La Habrea can't let him leave until they fully restore the place. And with the lab in Tartarus, they should be able to undo what was done to the researchers' minds and bodies. Erythonius still wants to know what made him so important and how Hephaestus planned on reviving Athena. Not that he plans on doing it, but he just wants to know. Since curiosity has already killed a few people, La Habrea forbids him from diving any deeper into it, and he plans on destroying Hephaestus' crystal to make sure this mess doesn't happen again. Themis agrees, although there's still the crystal that the Warrior of Light had to deal with. La Habrea hadn't even known about it, but hearing that it had a message in it piques his curiosity. Storing memories inside of a crystal is one thing, but putting a warning inside one is a lot more difficult. It also means that someone other than the four of you and Azem knew what was going on in Pandaemonium. It could be one of the other warders, but they won't know until after they question them. Since that'll take a while, the Warrior of Light heads home to get the crystal so she can bring it back to La Habrea. That's gonna be difficult because Claudian's assistants have lost contact with his airship, and there's more. Nemgigi has detected a massive amount of energy coming from the ethereal sea. Of course, you go to the Aetioscope with them to check it out, and the first thing you see is Pandaemonium has appeared in your world. Something that is clearly not good, especially since his appearance has gotten Alphino's dad's attention too. This concludes the story of Pandaemonium Abyssos. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, subscribe, and donate to the channel so I can keep bringing you guys new content. Until next time, later.